don't forget who helped you get there. Today's news leader is brought to you by Shivers. Live with chivalry.
Welcome to Business Q&A. I'm joined in studio now by Owen van Staffel. He is the senior partner at LRMG. That's a performance agency. And we're talking about confidence in business leaders. Owen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, nice to be here.
I want to kick off by putting to you that confidence in leaders, and that's whether it's political or whether it's in the private sector, not in a very good place right now.
Well, I think there's a lot been written about it. I think there's a lot going on right now where I think the public as a whole, as well as business, is looking at how leaders are performing, the behaviors, and they're being critical. So they're thinking about it, they're reflecting on it, and they're certainly saying something about it.
All right, let's bring it down to the private sector, which is where you focus on. What is your sense of what's happening in that space when you look at particularly performance issues and how you develop in South Africa?
Yeah, I think we, as a country, and certainly in the leadership, both internationally and locally, there's been quite an abdication of the responsibility of leadership development and what leaders need. I think there's been a lot of work being done in terms of rolling out good programs and good application of those programs, but they're not actually at the essence of what organizations and the individuals need. So there seems to have been a lack of listening and kind of a withdrawn process of how leaders actually need to be developed and what's needed to take them to the next level. So
let me interrupt you there. You made a very good point there, saying what leaders need. And often we look at programs. Is it really the only way that one can develop a leader within any organization?
It's a great question, because I think where the major challenge comes in, we haven't understood the principle of how adults actually learn. People learn through very informal ways and very informal engagements, yet most programs are very formal. So if we learn 80% of the time informally, and we're not listening to what people need to develop formally and create opportunities and environments that inspire that kind of development, then we are missing the point. And with these programs that are being rolled out, there's a lot of a lack of impact being made because they're so formal and they're not integrated into workplaces and what people personally need to develop their confidence and passion for leadership.
Let's talk chicken or egg. What comes first, developing a leader or teaching them first?
I think it's the chicken and the egg actually is about, are you passionate to be a leader, versus the egg potentially being some of the baseline skills and knowledge that I need to build my confidence as a leader. So can you develop someone who isn't passionate about leadership, or by default they're in a position? Or do you focus on skills development and hopefully over time they become passionate about leadership as they build their confidence? And that's the challenge.
The challenge. What's your thought though?
Mine is primarily focused on develop the passion in people to lead by creating opportunities and giving them access to and line of sight to what leadership actually looks like and what great leadership could look like and how they could fulfill that role.
Something that you're passionate about, and it's brand leadership, or developing one's style of leadership, if you want. Just delve into that a bit in terms of how does one develop the necessary kind of leadership skills for the organization that they're in? Is that an area which is often overlooked?
Yeah, there are multiple styles for leadership, and I think we often paintbrush people with one style and try and formulate that into a transactional, transformational leadership style. The area of passion specifically is, do you understand the brand that you want to be as a leader? And does that brand emanate the brand of the organization that you represent? And often there are mismatches or there are great connections, and when the connections are found, you live out that brand. If you think of organizations, private or public, the brand of organizations generally are represented by the leadership, and your decision on whether or not you engage that brand or not is based on how leadership performs. So culture and brand as a combination is a critical part of why confidence is also being lost, and that leaders aren't able to exude, live into, and decide for themselves are those the brands that they want to be in organizations.
All right. Owen, you guys are a performance agency. Again, in your last answer, you mentioned sometimes there's a mismatch. When that mismatch or disconnect, let's call it, is identified between the leader and the current environment that they're in, what steps should be taken over there?
I think there's a start off by listening and re-engaging the process. As an organization, our performance agency goes into organizations to look at how we can move the performance needle. And part of the leadership process is to pause and reflect and have conversations with leaders and then to help define that, create charters and articulate how people will behave, and put measurements in place so people can. So the mismatch is when the scorecard and the behavior are not congruent. And that creates a conflict in organizations. And our job as a performance agency is to look at those aspects and to be able to find the alignment and then cascade that down into an organization so that people know that the expectation of leadership is well aligned to what you're trying to achieve.
Although sometimes you have a situation where you've got someone who is not necessarily got the right leadership skills, but they're delivering in terms of the performance for the organization. What then?
It's called, we refer to as leadership by osmosis.
Yeah.
So individuals just naturally have a talent for leadership and they don't have the baseline skills or competencies in place, but they are able to deliver. Those are individuals that generally have a connection with organizations. And the what then question is, nurture that. Find opportunities to create more experiential opportunities for those individuals. And the escalation through the leadership ranks and becoming some of the icon and brand of the business will flourish. So identifying is important, listening to it, and then creating opportunities for those naturally talented leaders that you have in the organization.
If we focus on South Africa particularly, in the consulting that you do with various companies, what are you finding are the major pointers or issues that are lacking as far as leadership goes?
Well, I think there's some baseline challenges today that are not being understood. The first being that if you're developing leaders for today, then you're missing the opportunity for the future. And there are many future competencies and skills required in organizations that leaders have to assume now, because it takes a while to practice those and to become competent and capable to do those things. So that's a big gap. I think secondly, the recognition by senior management in organizations of the importance of and the investment in those processes are happening inadequately. They're happening into the wrong places for the wrong reasons, and they're outsourcing the problem. So the combination of those two elements are creating quite a bit of stumbling blocks and barriers for that journey to proceed and actually become quite powerful when you focus on the right things for the right reason.
Do you think we're failing as corporates in developing our leaders?
I don't think we're failing. I think we've created good baseline. I think the opportunity now exists for us to accelerate that, and accelerate that through more innovative ways of developing leaders and personalizing the leadership process and journey. You have to first be confident in yourself as an individual before you can embark on the journey of impacting your team, your company, and your country. So there's a journey there, and that direction for everyone's thoughts of perfection is a personal journey, and those personal journeys now need to be taken on. But the baseline programs are there. The level is required for us to become exceptional at what we do as leaders.
If I'm a CEO of a company and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, okay, well, they're talking about leadership. I mean, one of the questions we're bound to ask is how does this affect not only performance, but at the end of the day, bottom line? I mean, can you point to tangible effects and say, yes, we went in here, we talked leadership, we coached them, and yeah, there's been a turnaround in the organization, but also the bottom line is reflecting that.
I think there's enough literature around and studies being done throughout the world for many years, hundreds of years, on the impact of leadership quality and that on the bottom line. And you'll see the kinds of organizations that in the slump periods that had crashed was a function of leadership and the lack of quality in those environments. For CEOs, looking at and listening to this conversation, I think the critical question they must ask is, are the programs and interventions that we are implementing as an organization aligned to the impact I'm required on my bottom line, my brand, and those kinds of things? And I think too often those questions aren't being asked by the senior managers that embark and invest in these programs.
Well, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. That is Owen van Staffel. He is a senior partner at LRMG. Thanks for watching.
When you reach the top, don't forget who helped you get there. Today's news leader was brought to you by Shivers. Live with chivalry.
To some people, a car is simply a means of getting from A to B. To others, it's a source of passion.
This is built from the ground up to be an M. and M means immense power, immense braking, immense handling, immense fun.
If cars make your heart beat faster, then you'll find